who was also the evangelist, who was also an apostle. He wrote, just in terms of books, almost a quarter of the New Testament. Although the actual terms of percentage is much, much lower, his significance really cannot be overstated in terms of the theological intensity that he brings to the New Testament. His writing, which we call Johannine literature for some reason, is very, very different from the Synoptic Gospels. His Gospel is quite different, very, very different from the letters of St. Paul or even the other so-called Catholic letters. And of course, the book of Revelation is in its own category. Really, you have Daniel, Joel, some parts of Ezekiel, and you have Revelation. It's a really uniquely speaking. Two, John wrote much later than anybody else. John did most of his writing, as far as what we actually have on paper, in the 90s AD. And so this is significantly later. This is a generation later than the martyrdom of Peter, all the apostles, and into the second generation of bishops, people like Ignatius of Antioch and Polycarp. These folks are already doing their thing when John is on the scene and when he's actually writing his words. St. James is sort of, kind of, from an established bishop, but almost everything else is from people who are itinerant, right? They're moving here and there, and they're trying to get this from this position of someone who is very established. Persecutions of the early church by the time John is writing. And so it has a very, very different flavor to everything that he's doing. And in fact, as we'll see, we actually have two letters of St. John, which are really just kind of administrative documents, right? They don't feel helpful for us. It gives us a huge amount of context about the early church. And that also helps us to understand why St. John's Gospel, which was written for Christians rather than as a tool to convert people, is the way it is. And so it makes sense then that when we read John, we see a much more theological, as well as, and they seem counterintuitive, but also a much more practically theological approach. And we have, the whole series of I Am sermons. We have the of our minds as we turn our attention to the first, second, and John has 5 doors to lose. It's for you. We don't just have some of the rabble heresy come in, just to kind of give us a sense of outline, with a gospel that follows then, and finally John moves on to his family that he uses and brings up this spear problem, the fully. Why modern fail this, but that he is mortal coil, not drop because Jesus found in man, Protestants, certainly in this, not in his finger in an earth suit, that is, meet the, but Jesus that have not John and because difficult it takes, and St. John is by so that it's necessary to really hammer this the Bible. Oration to a specific community address, but if I say that table test addresses the quirks of language, but which are many ways possible. It's sort of like here there is going to be circle of 15 verses. Eric did his theme, the bazillion and a half guy, the guy there, but they weren't even that. And remembering you've been his name, Treefees, to the bishop apparently coming through. Thank you, it worked and. Everybody side around the provided more, and ideal it continues to be. First one is ability and divinity of 3 letters making the book of Revelation. So that